other celebrations that we are celebrating this month. And I thought it was so touching. We recently had these wonderful individuals on another panel, and I felt so much love that I felt like this would be wonderful to also have and share with our network so we can learn more regarding coming out and questions that we might have for the LGBTQ plus community. And all of these individuals that you see right here are authentic, so genuine, and are willing to share their stories. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And the first thing I'm going to do is just really quickly talk about who I am and what I do, and then we'll move on to the panel. So my name is Teresa Palacios Smith. I'm the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and I'm really excited to be here and work with this organization. And the work we do is so important, and there's a lot of celebrations and events that you are all invited to, and all of them appear in the marketing newsletters that we send out every single month. So if you're not aware of what we are involved with, that's a great place to check out, along with our resource center. Yesterday, we celebrated Juneteenth. I want to make sure we acknowledge that. Huge holiday, huge events all across the country, the jamborees that were held. I know Texas, Jennifer, where you're from, is where the originating Juneteenth holiday came from. And it was actually proclaimed a holiday, a national holiday, by President Biden 2 years ago. So we're really excited about Juneteenth. And the reason a lot of people say, well, why Juneteenth? What does that mean? What's the importance of that date? When the Civil War was finally settled and slaves were free, it took 2 years for individuals in Texas to get the messages regarding the fact that the Civil War was done and over, and that that there was no longer slavery, because those individuals that were there were still considered slaves. So freedom actually rang during the time that they were able to spread the news to Texas. And so that is why it is considered a huge Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, for all of those. So I love that it was proclaimed as a national holiday. And we normally at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services have the day off. We rotate holidays. And this year we gave, since it fell kind of on an odd day, we actually gave that holiday the option of you to take it either on Monday, Tuesday, or Friday, not on Wednesday. So you could have like the long weekend. So for those of you who are part of our company, that's what we did this year. Also, a lot of things that are events that we're hosting or celebrating, including Home Ownership Month. And that's really important for us. That's the industry that we're in. So it's really important for y'all to celebrate home ownership, to promote home ownership. There's a lot of events that are happening also through our resource center that we want to make sure that you talk about. And for immigrants, for me especially, having a home, it was the most significant event that impacted me and my family in my life. So I really love homeownership. And I always talk about I'm in the role that I'm in today because of the steps that we took in our family to build equity so that we could create wealth, so that I could go on to college and be placed in this phenomenal role that I'm in. So homeownership is really important. It's Immigrant Heritage Month, it's Pride Month, and it's also Caribbean American Month. So all these three events are happening this month, and we just want to take a minute to celebrate all of this. Now, my pronouns are she, her, and ella. That's the Spanish version of she and her. And today we have 5 phenomenal individuals that are part of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Global Network. And I wanted to have a conversation that's open and frank with all of these individuals. And so we have with us, and what I'm going to do is have each of them tell me first their names, their companies. Well, I will say their names, but the companies they're with, the locations that they are in, and what their roles in the company as we introduce each and every one of them. So I'm going to start off with you, Travis. And Travis, if you can tell us, Travis Clarkson, the company you're with, and the state that you're in, and your role within the organization.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. Travis Clarkson. I work for Berkshire Hathaway CVN Joynor in South Carolina. and I'm a realtor in what we call general. And I've been a realtor for 3 years, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you again for being here. Now I
Thank
have with me Ben Jasek. Ben, if you'll introduce yourself and your background and where you're from as well.
Absolutely. Ben Jasek here. So I am with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Woodmont Realty. We are located in Nashville, Tennessee. And as far as my role, I am a realtor. I have been licensed since 2016 and loving every day of it.
You do. I know every time we talk, I can see your smile, and the love that you do in that market and in a very productive market right now. How about you, Robin?
My name's Robin Sinnett, she, her, hers, and I work for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Touchdown Home Pros in Morgantown, West Virginia. I am also a realtor and just celebrated 2 years on June 8th.
I know you're one of our newest realtors. So well, how long have you been, Travis?
3.
3. So
Well, June
we've
23rd will
got
be
some
3.
new rookies, we've got experienced agents, we've got people from all over the country, and we have management too within our midst. So Jennifer, tell us about your background.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wilbur from Houston, Texas. I'm the president of Texas for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Premier Properties.
What a title.
And I've been in business for 24 years.
Awesome. And then Wayne?
Hi, I'm Wayne Woodyard. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am in San Diego, California with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services California Properties, and I'm the regional vice president for San Diego County.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, all of you. And if you notice, what we did was when we picked this great group of individuals, what we wanted to do was make sure we had a mix of different roles, different parts of the country, and also different, opportunities for y'all to get to know each and every one of them. So the first question that I ask, and I'm going to start in the way that I actually started the names, okay, is that, and it's okay to ask questions, right? This is why we titled this, because I have been very fortunate in the role that I'm in, that I've been able to get involved with so many great organizations. And the first time I went to an LGBTQ plus Alliance event, I was so amazed how much fun I had, how much jokes there were, all this stuff that I was not aware of. And I felt like, sometimes people are nervous to ask questions, and we wanted this to be able to people to feel like they could ask questions. And I think it's important for us to relate and understand the stories of each and every one of us. And so, Travis, tell me about your journey and your coming out, and what did that mean for you in that experience?
Oh, Joy, how much time do we have? So, I guess if I can tell a story, I was married for 10 years, and so I fell into, I guess, what we learn and what we've been groomed or trained in. So I saw the example of my mother and my father, and that is what I believe to be, family life and so forth. And so I went down that journey, married a woman, my high school sweetheart, and we were married for 10 years. And in that timeline, I had a gentleman kind of approach me. We were playing basketball, and he told me that, you're gay. And, we just went on this little whole tangent and back and forth and so forth. Long story short, he ended up kissing me, and every hair on my body stood up, and I felt electrified. And I said, my wife does not do this to me. And so, that kind of started my journey. And I grew up a Baptist. And so immediately I felt within me from my training and upbringing that I'm dying and I'm going to hell. And this is, the devil. And I took a shower for about 2 hours to try to wash the dirtiness off of me. And it took me about 3 years. And then the Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me that I didn't name Paul's thorn because I wanted it to be relatable to everybody. And he said, my grace is sufficient for you. And when he spoke those words to me, that is when my real journey began. I started living my authentic life and my authentic self. And from that point forward, no one can ever tell me, what I am, or can ever take what I am or what I've done or what I've accomplished away from me. And so that's pretty much my journey.
Wow. Ah, very touching. Really is. what are you still friends with your wife? Was that something?
We are very good friends. Yeah. So she has three daughters and we communicate more than not. And she's also a realtor in Mississippi, which kind of, helped encourage me to become a realtor. And so, yeah,
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
no, my
I'm
pleasure.
from Mississippi, so that's interesting to me. So, Ben, how about you?
Absolutely. So my journey's little interesting here. A lot of people, I ended up just turning 28. I'm young, and a lot assume that, oh, because you're young, it was a very, very easy, coming out. And what was interesting with me in coming out is I always knew I was different. But it was one of those things where actually my mom's brother, my dear uncle, he is gay as well, has a great husband, love him to pieces. But they ended up coming out in the 80s and during, the crisis and everything else. And of course, grew up with religious background as well. And the family did not react well to it. So I had already kind of known those components. And to be honest, as far as, at least on a family level, everything else, it very much took me a while to come out. It wasn't until I was, I believe, like 22, 23 when I'd come on out to my family. I had come out to my friends beforehand and everything. But at the end of the day, I'm just me and I am so blessed. And I just own my personality. I own who I am and am so blessed to be made in the way that I am.
And a lot of people do assume that, Ben, that because you are in a millennial, a lot of people are more open. It's more acceptable. In fact, Alex Cruz always talks about the different degrees of time periods that happened, right? Where people had to hide, they were afraid of being themselves, they couldn't talk about things. And you were in a situation that was very different, but your experience was not what people would imagine it to be based on the experience you saw in your family and the reactions that they had when your uncle came out. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Robin, being a trans agent has to be you probably get a lot of questions. So what was like that journey like?
Well, I can start kind of where my career began, and that was when I bought a home in 2020. And of course, we're unfortunately still kind of in that time where you have to ask, does anyone know anyone who's LGBT friendly? And a name came across a couple of times, and she was the first to get onto my post on Facebook and comment. And we began working with her. And throughout the course of that process, we found that she wasn't very responsive. She wasn't showing us properties that were, on the higher end of our budget. I think during the 3 to 4 weeks we worked with her, she showed us one property in person. So I went back to my post and I started scouring, and I found Lindsay Williams at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And she took us on as clients, and she was so phenomenal. She walked us through all the processes. She made the whole process enjoyable. And this was in 2020. So that's a challenge in and of itself. And I walked away from the experience saying, wow, I really want to do that for other people that are in my shoes, because the way we were treated by that first agent did not feel good, and no one should feel that way.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And this is you and your partner, and you'd actually done a lot of research in advance to try to be, because you have to, it's like, okay, I just want to make sure I'm going to have someone that is accepting of who I am, of my partner, of our relationship, of what we're looking for, and is compassionate and, is an ally. And you thought that you had gotten that with your first agent, but then realized truly what an ally is with your second. And I know that inspired you to become an agent too. So kudos to your broker. What is your broker's name so we can give her a shout out?
Lindsay Williams, and she
Lindsay
is
Williams.
a warrior. She's amazing.
Yes. To convert someone not just from a buyer, but to make them want to sell real estate to help others. Lindsay, that's a lot to say about your character and about who you are. So thank you for that. Right? Jennifer, tell me about your story.
I'm kind of like Ben. I always knew I was different or something was different. And, I came out really, really young. And since our last conversation, our last call, it didn't go very well. I hadn't been talked to about the birds and the bees and, what was this and what was that. And, I told you the last time, my mom asked me if I was gay and I said yes, and it didn't go well. And I remember that she called my aunt and my mom's best friend, who has been truly like a second mom to me, who just passed away. She really saved me. And it's so hard to talk about because she's gone now. But she really changed the way that I felt about myself. And it's so hard. I don't mean to get emotional in front of people I don't even know. But people don't realize how hard it is and how much you want to fit in and be accepted. And she did that for me. And I think that in the end, she helped my mom realize you're going to lose your daughter if you don't change your ways and be accepting. And I think that because of that, it really changed the way that my mom looked at me. And so I don't think any parent, raises their hand and says, I wish to have a gay child. And so, this was in the 80s and you didn't talk about it. And so, I think that it really changed the journey and the path that I was on, and that I, learned to love myself for who I was. So,
Thank you for sharing. And also,
Sure.
I know that you had, even you shared with us, and we'll talk about in a minute, about how even when you became involved as a leader in the organization, that it was even hard for you to talk about your life because you felt you might be judged.
When my wife and I got together and, we had, she probably would say she chased me more, because I was fearful because I was in a leadership position. And when I told you that when we had our daughter, I was like, what am I going to do? Hide my daughter and Raylan from everyone? And we were on a trip. I was trying to think where we were. And I think we were in Canada, to be exact. And I told them, I said, we were all going swimming. And I said, hey, by the way, they were all at the door. And I said, hey, by the way, I have a partner and I have a daughter. And they all looked at me and they're like, what? And I was like, yes, I have a daughter. And they were all looking at each other and I go, actually, I go, Steve, you've actually held my daughter. And he was like, what? And then they realized it was Raylan. And because the only child he had held was at the time he thought was Raylan's daughter, not knowing it was both of ours. And it just goes to not wanting to be judged and not wanting to, and just wanting to fit in. And I do have to say, Stacy Matthews is on this call, my broker, my owner. And I just want to say he is the most supportive, welcoming person I have probably ever worked for in my entire life. And for that, I want to say thank you, Stacy.
Stacy, we love you. Thank you
I
so
do.
much. Oh. Now, Wayne, I read your story and I tore down and cried. This was last year. The LGBTQ plus Alliance, Real Estate Alliance, put together a beautiful piece, a magazine. And I was shocked because I didn't know, you didn't tell me you were going to be in it. And so I'm looking through it and I see your story and I'm like crying because I didn't know this story about what happened to you and how you came to the realization. So if you don't mind sharing it, because it was so poignant, so beautifully told, and so touching.
Oh, thank you. And Jennifer, that was so beautiful. And I told myself I wasn't going to be a blubbering idiot like I was on the last call. But, and I see your wife, Ray Lynn, is on this call too, and she must be so proud of you. And it's just so awesome.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just like Travis, and I was married as well. And that was, my journey. But and like Jennifer, I never felt accepted, as a child. I was born in '63 when things were much different. And so I always thought I was different as a child. And the kids spotted it first on the playground before I even knew in my 30s, or came to the realization, because we have the shame of being gay and everything that is gay and what that means, because back then it was just taboo. And it's shame that's projected onto us by other cultures, from religion and family and, all of that. But, at one point in time in my journey, I came to the conclusion it wasn't my shame, it was the shame of others. And that I had to figure out within me how to justify that. So, you go through life feeling unloved because we're told that being gay is bad. So you repress it and you repress it. So like Travis, the social norm, I met my wife in college, we got married, we had 2 kids, we were the beautiful family, on and on and on. But and we were both in real estate, but you get to the point, I got to the point to where I knew I was different, something was wrong, and I was either, I was going to become an alcoholic or kill myself, which I almost did, the kill myself thing. And that was my realization that I didn't want to leave that legacy like 4 of my family members did, where you didn't talk about these horrible suicides. So I got help, and, I came out shortly after that. And the kids were 2 and 6, and it was very difficult. And we were the top agents at Coldwell Banker. It was just an awful situation all the way around, and I walked away and moved into a 1-bedroom apartment and sat there and cried. But I think I cried because I was free.
Yeah.
But I cried because I felt bad for my wife, on and on. But to this day, like Jennifer said this morning, oh, what a beautiful family. She saw a photo of all the kids were just here, and we have our 3rd grandchild on the way. And I've been, with my partner for going on 21 years, my husband, Paul, going on 21 years. And I don't have that shame anymore. I think we all do, hidden inside of us, because, after that last call, I was so emotional, and that it took a toll on me, because it all boils back up inside of you.
Right. Which is something I think people don't realize. We talk about, and Wayne, thank you for sharing that beautiful story, all of you. I really, really appreciate y'all's open and honest conversation, because I know it's difficult. One of the things that Alex Cruz is Director of Education for the LGBTQ Plus Alliance and teaches a phenomenal course about the ABCs of the community. And one of the things that he brings up is that for the LGBTQ plus community particular, they are always coming out. It's not like one day only, it's every day is a scenario where you don't know what's going to happen, because somebody may, not know that you are gay. So how has that impacted anyone that wants to speak up about that? Has that ever happened to any of you? And what reaction did you get, and how did you handle it?
Well, I'll start. I think that, I'll speak for myself, but especially being in the role that I am at HomeServices, when I first came to the company, I think the assumption of a lot of people is you're heterosexual, and that in a professional environment, you're navigating the course. Unlike if you're straight, you interview for a job and you go in and people ask you about your weekend and your family and blah, blah, blah. But there's always this guard up because we have that fear of rejection, of shame, and everything that we grew up with that's been ingrained inside of us. So we feel, even in California, you think it would be very liberal. It's not. There's certain places that are, but there's certain places that are not, and there's a lot of people that are not. So you navigate it just that way. But I navigated towards a company that was more inclusive because I kind of knew a little bit about the company. And when they reached out to me, I was more willing. But I think we always have that piece inside of us that is always on edge in a new situation, because we do. And then people ask you about your kids. Oh, are you married? And so you have to go through the coming out process again, you know?
Right.
And it's hard.
That can be so daunting and so nervous, because you never know, especially with clients, Travis or Ben or Robin, as you are dealing with, new individuals who may not know who you are, your story, and they will assume something about you, and then you have to say, or do I say, right? Oh, I don't know if I should say that. I don't have children, whatever that may be. Anyone else want to pipe in?
I think in
Teresa,
my case, so go ahead.
no, you please go ahead, Robin.
I think in my case, it's a little bit different because I have to analyze every person I engage with individually, one-on-one. And being in an extremely conservative state, we are the boogeyman as transgender people. We have 2 Republican gubernatorial candidates, and their platforms are anti-trans. So you're looking for the allies, and I talk about that a lot. But a lot of times you just kind of have to keep your head down and not make waves to just get by.
It's so people don't realize even the danger that you can place yourself in when you're showing someone a house that's a customer that is a new customer. I mean, I can't even put myself in your shoes. Jennifer, you were going to say something.
I lost my thought just because I was thinking about Robin and just the fear of not knowing how people are going to interact, and just to live with that would be just so much. And I always go back to, why can't people just be kind? It's just not that hard.
Yeah,
so true.
I know it's one thing I was going to say, Teresa, is we were at an agent awards event a few years ago, and one of our partner services reps was standing at the bar, and Martha was next to him, our president. And he said to her, he didn't realize, and nor did she, that I was right behind them in the line. And he said, I can't believe this company would hire Wayne and put him in his position because he's gay. And as she turned to give him a piece of her mind and say, that is totally unacceptable, she saw me. And then she was like, so then it turns into this HR nightmare, and he has to go into all of these, he had to take all these courses, but we faced that on a norm. This was just a couple of years ago. And so all of us on this call, just from what Robin, I can't imagine what you deal with on a daily basis. And my heart just goes out to you. But what we all deal with, because we all have people that have sometimes voiced those things. I heard that one, but a lot of times we don't hear it. And there's a lot of people that think that.
Right. And the hardest thing is to stand up for someone else, because you're afraid that you will be judged as well if you say anything. And I love the fact that you could see Martha. She was like,
well, and Martha, she's not going to stand for that,
right.
And
absolutely.
They actually put it in my court if he should be fired. And I'm like, just educate him. If we can educate one more person through this process, firing him is going to do no good. We need to educate him.
We need people to understand we are all alike. Every one of us. We are all the same inside. So think about that, because that is really what's the important message. We all want to be loved, respected, valued, and just be able to live our lives the way we want to live them, right?
Yes, Teresa.
Right?
I pray for the day. Yeah. I pray for the day where we can all appreciate each other's uniqueness. There are about what, billion people in the world,
Yeah.
and not one of us are the same. We all
None
have,
of us.
in each one, even twins, we each have individual and unique qualities. And so if we could just appreciate each unique quality that we all have, just because you may not like chocolate milk doesn't mean you have to impress on me to not like chocolate milk. Just respect the fact that I love chocolate milk. I respect the fact you don't like chocolate milk, and we can still live together.
Ah, I think that's beautifully said. And, sometimes, and anyone who wants to answer this question is, we make these assumptions about the
Yeah.
community. Okay. I think a lot of times you hear things and you make assumptions. So what are some myths or maybe misconceptions that we need to be aware of that, when we are, working either with clients that are LGBTQ plus clients or addressing individuals as well? Anybody?
I have one. It's not necessarily a negative one. I chuckle every time my friend says it, but she's always constantly giving me an assignment because she says, "You're gay, and I know you have great attention to detail, so you'll get it done." But that may not be the case for everyone.
I think that's a great stereotype analogy that people have that I think it's really important for to be aware of, for all of us to be aware of.
Yeah.
Anything else? Like, I know some of the things too that I love, Wayne, that you've talked about is how sometimes you assume someone's married or
Mhm.
they're partnered, or
Mhm.
what are some of the language that we need to be aware of when, we are working with somebody that might be LGBTQ plus or is, and we find that out because you've talked about mirroring.
Uh-huh.
And
Mhm.
so let's talk about that real quick. I think
So,
that's important.
so one example is when Paul and I first moved to San Diego, we weren't sure if we wanted to live in buy a high rise, a condo in a high rise. So we rented for a while to see what we thought. We got stuck there during the pandemic, so we decided not to. But the landlord was like, "So there's two names on this contract, and so this is my partner, your business partner." I'm like, "No, my life partner," and because we were not married at the time, and it was, So I think an assumption. So I think in general, since I come from a different era than Ben and Travis, I'm a little bit older. The stereotypes were we were promiscuous. We were, it's a choice. It's just transgender individuals are confused or mentally ill. It's just this horrible thing. So the education piece around it. So I just think the education, which the Ally course does, you
Mhm.
don't assume anything, even if you are with someone, you don't assume that's your husband, because before Jennifer was comfortable in being her unique self, I'm sure she would show up at an event maybe with a man, or I would show up with a woman. So we have to be careful on how we generalize things in that instance. And I think if we use a pronoun behind our name on a business card, that alerts the others that say, "Oh, he's accepting, he understands." And I don't have to have my guard up, like Robin said, where she has to go and do this forensic research on everybody to make sure she's going to be safe.
Yeah.
You brought a great point up because it's one of my questions, because I actually have my pronouns on all my signatures, and every time I adapted Robin's idea of making sure I had my pronouns on my name tag, because I thought, oh, I didn't realize that it's not about me, it's about making sure that others know that I'm an ally, right? And being approachable. And so how many of you, tell me your position on pronouns? Because Ben and I even talked about this a little bit, because he's not as comfortable about doing it because he's in a southern state, and parts of the country, that's another myth, can be very different depending on where you are. whether you feel open enough to be able to do that or not. Robin, you're in a conservative state. So tell me your position about pronouns and why is it important for allies to actually have those as well? Anyone?
Yeah, I'll jump on in first since you had kind of brought me up here. So of course, as far as pronouns go, I do identify as he, him, his. It's one thing. I am in Nashville, Tennessee, where we're actually, in my opinion, pretty darn progressive for being in the state of Tennessee. But a good chunk of my business is also rural through a lot of my connections and everything. And it's just one of those things where it has not made its way onto my signatures. Unfortunately, there are many who are closed-minded and who get very sensitive about that. So it's just one thing for me personally. I kind of go back to it's a little bit more of a geographical thing. It's a cultural thing. So at least for me in our Nashville area, I personally do not use them. It is not as common to see realtors in our area to do that. And again, that is I don't mean that in a bad way towards anybody, because I completely understand, I respect, and I acknowledge that. But it's just one of those things that even with other agents, whatnot, it's just not as common around here. We use a term, everyone's heard it, it's y'all. And it is, we constantly just use that. And you know what? It works. It meets everybody.
Y'all is the perfect,
Yeah.
opening to any, group. I love the fact that we can say y'all in the South, which is really opening to everyone and very inclusive, Ben. But thank you for sharing that, because I get that question a lot, is like, well, I'm not sure about doing that. I might get judged. I might get misjudged. What are the rules? And having you, Ben, an LGBTQ plus individual, to say, for me, I don't use it for this reason because of where I am, my culture. I'm openly gay. People know that, but I just don't want to, make anyone else uncomfortable, especially where I am. And that's something too that I think is very unique to you. And I love that you're open and honest about it. Anyone else?
I think it depends on, I'm sorry, I think it
Go ahead,
depends
Jasek.
on the audience that you're and who you're communicating with on the comfort level. And so I have a couple of different signatures that, depending on who I'm talking to, on a comfort level. And, you asked earlier about people's misconception about the LGBTQ plus. And I think a lot of it is that when you're in a relationship, that people think one is more dominant versus like the man or the woman. And I'm just Jennifer. And if people are like, oh, are you the tomboy one? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm just Jennifer. Raylan married Jennifer Wilbur. She didn't marry a tomboy or anything like that. I'm just Jennifer. And so I think that's a really big one, how people, want to say that one is more the other than, male versus woman or whatever. I'm not really sure how to put that, but I'm sure that Raylan is nodding her head.
Well, it happens. It happens to this day. Yesterday, one of my agents asked me, "So are you the wife or the husband?"
Yes.
And and you just kind of sit there, and and I'm just like, and he is one of the most inclusive people. He makes horrible jokes about things, but doesn't have a bigoted bone in his body.
Right.
He's just, he's one of these un-PC people that you can't have HR around. But I just think it takes education, because that is not the thing to say to somebody.
Exactly.
So do y'all hear this? Thank you, Wayne, for bringing that up. This is the kind of conversation I want to talk about, because it's open and you don't ask somebody, are you the wife or the husband? Or,
Exactly.
tell me about your, what were you before, or what is it now? Or do you like, you wouldn't ask a normal person, like you wouldn't ask me that.
The problem with society is they sexualize what we are. So Teresa, when I see you, I don't, when someone looks at us, like the whole drag queen thing with reading to children. There's no sexualization there. It's the parents sexualizing it. As I mentioned, my parents, good grief, they're gone, God rest their soul. And they were in a different, way different generation, born in the 20s. But they used to go to San Francisco to Finocchio's, which was a great gay. It was the men were gay, and they were I hate to say drag queens, but they were the old they were entertainers, but they all went, and that was the thing to do, and it wasn't a problem back then. So what has changed now? They weren't sexualizing it back then, but now when they look at us, that's when he says, so my agent in that comment was wondering, you know, are you a top or are you a bottom in the gay world? You know, I hate to be so blunt, but
No, right.
It's
I
kind of
cannot-
hypocrisy though, because they accuse our community of sexualizing children, that, you know, we have baby boys that it's like, oh, he's going to be a lady killer, or little girls, you're just going to have to beat the boys off of her.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All these things that, you know, are really, you know, dialogues that are happening every day, but then the turn of events becomes just a negative toward the community because there's no understanding or education. And that's really the bottom line. There really is not understanding or and there's judgment based on, you know, your religious beliefs. I'm a very religious individual. I grew up as a Catholic. You know, my husband was a Southern Baptist. Travis, like you, I don't know if you were Baptist or Southern Baptist, because there's a difference, you know, but, you know, having those, you know, melding of two different religions, I think helped me be more accepting of, oh, wow, why do y'all do that? Or, you know, and vice versa, because it all points out to that specific religion belief. And I'm like, think about it. You know, God created every one of us. If you are in a religious belief, so why would that be wrong, right? He created me, right? And so, you know, I look at it from that perspective always, that we are unique. And I think, Travis, you said that, or, you know, and that's really what we have to think about. Each one of us are unique, that God made us, if you are religious and you believe that. So why would it be something wrong? What would be wrong with that? So that's my point. That's my position.
Well, and we have a lot more work to do, because out of the 50,000 agents HomeServices has in the network, we have 7 people on here other than us.
Right.
And that shows.
Oh, I say 21 people, but yeah.
But well, oh, I'm sorry. So we have 14 plus 7. Yeah. But
we do have a lot of work to do. Yes.
But we do have a lot of work to do through all of our management. And I don't know what the answer is, because we need to be the educators, because we don't want to change people's minds, you know, because we just need to educate people that everybody should be treated equal.
Yeah.
And it starts with one person. And so my belief is always, yes, we should have more people on here, but one person can touch and really impact that next person, who can touch and impact another. And that's how the domino effect is. And I think touching the lives of others with what y'all are saying today is really what is the most important thing that we can all do. And so again, I realize that we have a lot of work to do, but just one person at a time. If we can touch one and impact one person, that's where it all begins. One of the things that you just brought up, Wayne, and if anyone, you know, any comments, y'all are welcome.
Teresa, can I please?
Yes.
Because I really want to, I'm really interested in the conversation that Wayne was having with his employee or the realtor that's a part of your agency. Do you think, since we're on the topic of education, and I'm going in a direction of when is education, when is it too much and when is it not enough, so to speak? So do you feel that in that instance, Wayne, that the individual that asked you that question, were they really trying to be educated, or were they, because you mentioned he didn't have a bigoted bone in his body, but you know, where's that line? Was it being educational, or was it just being inquisitive?
Exactly. And then in my role, and Jennifer can relate to this, he's our top agent in San Diego.
Okay.
And so that doesn't excuse his behavior, but in my role, I have to take, I have a very good relationship with him and with his wife. So I can have that conversation with him, because if he knew I was offended, he would feel horrible. And so I wasn't going to do it in front of the group of people, but I need to have that conversation and the education when the two of us are together upstairs in his office, because our offices are down the hall from each other. And I can just say, I just want to talk to you about something, and move on from there. And I think that, like Teresa said, educating one person at a time, I think that'll make an impact on him. But some other people, it wouldn't. They just say, "Oh, he's how people with their dismissive rhetoric that they get."
Right. Okay.
How do you say what were you thinking? I mean, that spurred something
was your
inside of
impression?
you.
Well, yeah, so I was in a similar situation, which is why I asked. And I was at an event with my husband, but I actually appreciated the, I'm going to call it an inquisition, because I was able, I feel that the individual left very educated, and light bulbs were going off. You could tell light bulbs were going off. But some of the things that, were being asked, it was, where
It's
do you draw the
personal
line?
information that you would
it's
never
so
ask anyone
personal.
in a conversation, which Robin, you brought up very beautifully. And I don't mean, and so tell that piece, because we talked about this yesterday, on why would you think it's okay for you to ask that question? Would you ask that question to another couple?
Right.
Right?
We've talked about,
Yeah.
people's fascination with our bodies, what surgeries we may or may not have had, how we're intimate with our partners. And that's just not something you would ask somebody else. And people feel like they have that license to that part of your who you are, and they truly just don't.
And that's the biggest thing. So for a trans agent, those are taboo questions for you to ask, because you wouldn't ask anyone else those questions. So think about, okay, wait a minute. Why would I ask somebody that I wouldn't ask Teresa, right? And if they do, that then it's them. It's the inappropriateness between them, right? That individual. So keep that in mind as we work with the community, as we learn more about the community. That is really private information. It's none of your business. It's none of your business. And so the questions that ask are personal questions. Tell me about your kids. What do they like to do? What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? That is how you get to know an individual. Now, one thing that we talked about year round is becoming an ally. How do you, show, not just during Pride Month, because we've got right now a lot of eyes on Pride, it's this month, but how can we become better allies and individuals throughout the year? And Wayne, I'm going to ask you that one.
Well, I think it's with the education. It's with the use of your pronouns. I think there's a lot of personal growth that, like what Travis was saying. Once you can educate somebody, and he said those light bulbs went off, that is what we can do in an ally course, and let them be in the field. Because this whole conversation we just had, and what Robin said, was spot on. Everyone is curious about what we do in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So they don't value us as a normal human being, because they don't go around asking everyone else the same thing. They look at us like we're a circus animal. And I hate to use that, because it makes me feel bad inside. But when you really boil it down, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's how it makes us feel. So I think through the Ally program, we could do a lot of education, because some people just flat out don't get it. And when we have these conversations, they're like, wow, I can't believe that I even said that. Well, you know, a lot of things are ingrained in us how we were raised. We've all probably taken the bias override class. Good grief, I didn't realize some of the stuff I had been ingrained with as a child, you know?
Each of us have stereotypes depending on where we grew up, how we, were raised, religion, background, cultures, that really affect those biases and stereotypes. So, really always check that before you speak and think about, wait, stop, pause, and think about what you're going to say, or think about, this is an individual, this is a person, a human. And that's what you got to think about when you're talking to anyone, any client, anyone that you're addressing,
Poor
especially.
Bennett. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What?
No, I was going to say poor Ben and Travis probably think that Wayne, he's traumatized.
No, not
not
at
at
all. I
all.
was going to actually piggyback off kind of what you were
Yes.
saying, Wayne. And for me, I mean, we've all heard ignorant comments or questions or this and that. And, there's many of my friend groups where I am the only LGBTQ plus individual in our friend groups. And I've been very open with my friends about, hey, I want to be a resource so that you can be better educated and understand. I've also had some not so great things or negative comments or remarks made. And instead of myself getting upset, I more so am one to kind of dig into the why and educate on that one. Because again, we're all people at the end of the day, and yeah, I might be a little different than you, and the other person might be very different than me. But you know what? It's a very two-way street, and I always try to be that safe space for, many of my different contacts to reach out with. It even cracked me up, which I love this. The other day, one of my agents called in my office. He called me, and he was working with a couple moving from Washington State. And both guys moving from Washington State, they've been married for a while, and the agent was questioning me, hey, how would you feel, in this area? What are some things I should look out for? Because again, Tennessee, once you go outside of Nashville, some areas it's like the Wild West where you hear the banjos playing in the distance. So it's like I love to be that resource. And for me, again, it's just education and just informing others so that they can also be, better educated on their end. And, again, whether it's comments, whether it's whatever, just kind of, I try to hit that on the front end so it doesn't come back around. And I like to think I've got pretty tough skin. I can make it through things, but others may not be. And that's where it's like, again, just the education, informing all of that for me is so crucial. So I really try to be a, LGBT resource for those who are not involved with the community, or invite them out to, some of our events that we do or whatnot, and really giving those a different perspective. Because, some are caught up so much on labels or this or that the news media projects. And I'm trying my best to just break that down, and we're just us,
And you brought something up that I really want to, because we're running out of time. I can't believe this conversation has been so great. I wish we could have had more time, but in the, the organizations, because each of you I know are very involved in your communities. And like I said, for me, what really has been the most significant and made the biggest impact for me has been the organizations that I've been involved with, where I get to learn, and this is my job. I get to be, exposed to different cultures and opportunities. So what organizations are y'all involved with locally that that you highly, or nationally, that you highly recommend us get involved with within our own communities to learn more and to get more exposure and more education? And I'll start with you, Travis.
So I am involved with a organization called Youth Outright. It's out of Asheville, and they, I'm going to say, specialize in queer teens and transgender teens, in helping them really forge a path in life, so to speak. the majority of the times these teens are displaced from their homes because of the decisions they've made to be, trans or gay. And so this program kind of gives them education and gives them like a career mindset or a career trajectory. And they also provide them with stipends and so forth. And so it's a really good organization. Now, I can't say that I agree with 100% everything that they do, but the majority of the things that they do, I am on board with, and I volunteer and I donate to that particular organization. In fact, when I got married 2 years ago, in lieu of gifts, I requested that individuals make donations to that charity, and it was a huge hit.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
No
Robin.
I think I touched a little bit on it yesterday. I'm a huge proponent of the National Center for Transgender Equality. They've got such a comprehensive website that is a resource for trans people, people that want to be allies. I mean, just about anything you could think of to look up as an ally or even a trans person is there. It's questions that you might be afraid to ask someone who's trans. It's state by state guidelines on procedures like changing your name, what your rights are, and all of those things. And I think it's great, not only for the transgender person that doesn't quite know how to navigate their own journey or how to look out for their best interest, but it's also a great starting point for allies to know what questions they need to ask, because you don't know what you don't know.
Thank you for sharing that one. And it's great for parents too, who might be going through that with their own children. So I thank you for sharing that one. Ben, how about you?
Absolutely. So I'm involved with, gosh, a lot of different things if you've met me. But I am on the Nashville, for our local chapter, I am on the board of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, which is such a phenomenal resource, spreading our advocacy for home ownership within the community. So big part of that. I'm also part of the Tennessee Pride Chamber as well. It is headquartered here in Nashville. So whether they are LGBTQ plus owned businesses or very strong ally supporters, such a great resource with that as well. And then another organization that I personally have been very involved with, and it is near and dear to my heart as well. I'm so excited I can say this, is that my other half, or my boyfriend, is actually the senior manager over at Music City Prep Clinic, which is a HIV, STD, they're very educational within the community and they're actually largest clinic within the US, to my knowledge, for at least a city base. It's not national. So great nonprofit organization. I've been doing a lot of volunteer work with them as well. And just the advocacy that they do for the community and for those affected with or preventing, HIV, AIDS, all the different things there. It's just, they do so many amazing things, and I'm proud to be part of that as well.
Thank you so much, Ben. We only have a minute left because we're running over time, but I do want to catch Jennifer and Wayne before we sign off, because Jennifer, you talked about a great organization in Texas, and I think they're national, that we just want to make sure people know about.
Tony's Place. It's a lot like the charity that Travis talked about. It's kids that have been displaced, and they were talking to me last week about, they needed more people to volunteer. And so I'm definitely going to reach out to them and sign up to do that. But we met them last year at the convention. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so financially, they need all the support they can get.
Thank you for mentioning that group and that organization. And that was a convention at the LGBTQ plus Alliance. And they have a big event in September. Is it September?
Yep, in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas this year,
Yep.
And so again, the Alliance will have their big event. Wayne, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, and I'm involved in quite a few things, but mainly I'm focusing my efforts on the Alliance right now, and at the NAR and the CAR level, because at California Association and National Association, we have so much work to do. If you saw all those horrible posts that were posted about Pride Month. So we have a lot of work to do. So I'm focusing on diversity and fair housing at those associations to try to impart some wisdom.
Thank you all for being on this special edition of celebrating Pride Month, for providing your comments, bringing your authentic selves, and really sharing your story with all of us. It has been a very special moment for me. For all of you, we are very involved with the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance. We are a founding partner of that organization. And so, it is a great group along with others. I wanted to make sure this is the message. There are organizations, I don't care where you live, in every city, that you are able to join and to be a partner with. And so seek those organizations so that you can educate yourself, get others involved, teach your children. And the biggest thing I want to remind everyone, I'm going to really quickly share my screen as we sign off, because we do have a discount that we offer those of us who are employees or members of the LGBTQ plus community, and you get a discount, when you join the alliance. So if you look at the discount, this is the discount code that you would use, HSOA 2024. You can also use BHHS 2024, and you get a discount to join that organization. You can scan the QR code right there and access the organization. And as I sign off, just a couple reminders. I'm going to switch off. We do several programs. Diversity Matters is one. This is our next guest, Lemo Levels, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. He's going to be our next guest. We also have Women Who Lead. Jennifer and Robin both have been premiered on that program. Their podcast is available. You can download their information, and we have that every month as well. Reading list, favorite movies. These are my top 3. I just picked 3 that I could find on any of the 3 big Hulu, Prime, or Netflix. And I really, Boy Erased, oh my God, that's one that touched my heart because of that, that transition, was it called conversion therapy, that I didn't know about existed, really kind of educated me totally. So again, some of my favorite movies, there's a bunch of them, but these are ones that I thought were real easy and accessible for all of you. And Wayne, I love this, and I wanted to share it as we sign off. We may all look different on the outside. I mean, the beauty of the color of each of these beautiful eggs, but when it all comes down to it, we're all the same inside, right? So thank you all, right, for joining us. Thank you each for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the month. Tell everyone about this program, and let me know if we can continue to educate you going through your companies directly, because we can bring the ABCs of the LGBTQ plus community, among other training, to your offices directly. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Teresa.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.